What is up, everyone? Happy Friday. Welcome to Adobe Live to the Pro Tips Edition. My name is James Bonanno, and I could not be more excited to be here for the next 30 minutes on this beautiful Friday before the holiday. How is everyone doing? Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Uriel, Annika. Welcome, everyone, to the chat. Today's format, if you've seen some of these done already, is slightly different than some of the other shows that we have produced in the past. This will be 30 minutes of some in-depth zoom in, zoom out, some of my most effective kind of Premiere transitions. So we're going to be creating those from scratch, showing you how to save them as presets, how to use them in the future, and really just create some transitions to just spice up your workflow a little bit in Adobe Premiere Pro. We will be doing all of that right here in the next 30 minutes. So for those that are joining on Behance, stick around and follow us after. The link is in the description. We will be on Discord for 30 minutes after the stream, answering any of your questions, going into some more details of Premiere Pro, of my workflow, just any questions, tips you have, hop over there. It's going to be a really, really great time. Again, we have been trying a bit of a different format, and it seems to be working. So if you're still eager to learn more after these 30 minutes, I encourage you to join that Discord and ask any questions that you have. That being said, thank you, Ray. Thank you, Annika, again, for being here in the chat with me today on this beautiful Friday. It's gorgeous outside, but I love being here in the office working in Premiere. So let's just dive in and spend the next 25, 30 minutes going into how to create these zoom in, zoom out transitions. Now, before I get started, I just want to play back a little bit of what we're working on here today. So this is just a little short film that I'm working on kind of in my own backyard. And I've used these transitions to just add a little bit of pop to some of these some of this drone footage that I have here. So to start, I just want to play it back real quick, and then I'm going to show you at home how we're going to actually create these. So let's just play it back here. So in my opinion, we are standing in one of the most beautiful places in all of New Jersey. And there we have it. Very simple, very clean little intro. I feel like I'm always wearing some sort of green color. Like the color palette here is kind of neutral and green. That is a different shirt, so I don't always wear this shirt. But it's it's a nice color. So really what I wanted to talk about today is just these zoom in, zoom out transitions. Again, these are, I'm sure if you're into video editing, if you've watched any sort of video on YouTube, these kind of transitions are very common. They can be overused, but I think when they're subtly implemented into your films, into your videos, they do make a pretty nice impact. And we're going to take this in 3 steps. The first step is we're going to actually build these transitions on a new timeline. I'm going to show you how to create a zoom in transition first using adjustment layers. The second part of it is going to be adding some of that music. So we want to hit that kind of nice bass note so that that zoom in transition makes the most sense. And then maybe we're going to add a little bit of like a whoosh sound effect to it. And lastly, we'll kind of wrap up showing you how to save it as a preset. So I know we have a lot planned, but I'm confident that we can get through it. And if I'm getting tight on time, we'll try to follow up with some of those questions in the Discord. So as you can see here, this is what I've already created, and I'm going to just mute our audio for a sec so we're not so distracted with the loud music that I've already put in there. But if I just scrub right through this, you can see that we're basically already pushing in. This is a nice drone shot that I'm already zooming in on. So this is in camera. And I wanted to then push into a shot that I was also zooming into. And I think the first thing to remember when you're creating these transitions is you can't really just slap it on any clip. I think if you want to do a zoom in transition, it's helpful to have the camera already moving towards that next part of the frame that you will be zooming into. It just makes the most seamless sense. And I think the same is true for zooming out. Let's say we want to zoom out of this office and we're zooming out with the camera, and then the clip that we cut to is also zooming out. It makes it feel a lot more organic, I guess, even though we're adding it into it. Okay, so what you see here is I have 2 adjustment layers. So I'm going to actually start a new sequence, and we're going to create this from scratch to show you how we did this. So let's just go 1920 by 1080. We're going to stick to a 60. Let's just do 2397, and we're going to call this zoom in, test. Okay. And I'm going to just grab these two clips because I already know these are the ones I want to use. And again, for the sake of time, these clips are already kind of decided, and I've already chosen those ins and out points. So we don't necessarily need to worry about that. All right. So we want to go from bridge, and rather than just a hard cut, we want to actually cut right, have that transition come right through here on our secondary bridge shot. And what you'll notice is I'm actually pulling up on the drone, and that's just because of the way that I shot that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to my speed and duration, and I'm going to reverse the speed so that now when we zoom in, we're zooming in and we're coming down into that bridge. So it's going to feel a little bit more natural. All right. So the first thing we're going to do, right click in here, new adjustment layer. Okay, we're just going to drag that adjustment layer on here, and let's go 6 frames to the right. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to cut that. And let's go back to that cut. If you use your cursor here, we can go back to the cut, and let's go 6 frames to the left. So let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is kind of just a good rule of thumb. It's not a scientific number, but that's just what I like to do. Okay, and we are going to duplicate this, drag it up. So hold Option and drag your adjustment layer up. Okay, so this top adjustment layer is what the transform property and the effects are going to live on. So that's scale property, which I will show you here in a minute. And the bottom adjustment layer is where it might get a little complicated, but it really isn't, and we can save that as a preset. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we zoomed in here, right? So we're going to actually make sure that we clip out those first 6 seconds. And we're going to drag this bottom adjustment layer so that it snaps right to the cut here. And for some reason, it's not doing that. So let's just ensure. Uh-oh. Not sure why that's not doing that. Okay, so we have this adjustment layer snapped right to the cut. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into our effects window here. And the first thing we're going to add is a replicate effect. And we're going to add that to the bottom. And what you'll notice is it now created like this mosaic tile look on our footage, which looks okay. But we are going to change the count here. If you open up your effects controls over here in the window, you'll notice that when I click on this, I can change the count to 3. So we're going to change that to 3, and you'll see why in a minute. Okay, so the next effect that I'm going to add is called a mirror effect. And again, this is not something that I created. This is something that plenty of creators have been doing for a long time, but I thought today's pro tip would be a really great way to dive into how these are actually created and not to feel intimidated by the fact that you can implement these transitions in your films. All right, so our first mirror, basically what we want to do is we want to take the reflection angle of the X and Y axis, and we want to close off all those harsh lines so it feels like one blended mosaic. And the way to do that is we're going to add 4 different mirror effects. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And the very first mirror effect we're going to do here is we're going to just leave that at 0. Okay, so that's our reflection angle. And we're going to take our X properties. And if you drag it over, you'll notice that if I keep dragging, we've now lost that line there. So I'm going to just slowly zoom that in until we lose that line. You want to make sure that it's very seamless. Okay, so that's our first mirror property. We're going to go into our second mirror property, and we're going to change that reflection angle to 90 degrees. All right, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to drag the Y axis this time, and we're going to make sure that we have lost that harsh line as well. Okay, so now we go right to about there. Now we've lost that harsh line. We're going to do the same thing down here, only we're going to change the reflection angle to 180 degrees. And we are going to drag our X properties over. And again, same thing here. We want to make sure that this adds that sort of mosaic look here that we're going for. And we're going to go all the way to the last mirror. And this is going to be 360 degrees. And we are going to then pull our X axis over. This clip is kind of hard to see just because of the colors on it that I chose here. And it could be a little tricky, but we're getting it. We getting it. All right, so it looks like now we have a nice seamless sort of mosaic here to work with. Okay, so I'm going to close all these under our properties. All right. And the next thing, the last part of this process, because we want to zoom into this, is I'm going to go above on my adjustment layer and I'm going to come over here to my effects window. We're going to go to transform. And that's under the distort video effects. We're going to add that on top. Okay. And basically, the transform properties are just a larger adjustment layer for all of those motion properties that you already have up here. But we can adjust a couple things that are really important. The first thing is called the composition shutter angle. So we want to uncheck that. That's how you're going to get that really, really nice smooth motion blur as you're pushing through these video clips. And we're going to change that shutter angle to 360 degrees. That's kind of like the maximum blur we want. If you didn't want it to be as blurry, you can make it 180 degrees, or you can go a little bit lower. And it's more of just a hard cut zoom, which, could work in certain cases. But in today's video, we're going to go 360 degrees. Okay. And I'm just going to go back to my edit window here, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to reference what we had done here just to kind of keep flipping back and forth. And then that way we can sort of work from here. All right, so before I actually add this, I want to break down what I had done already. So you'll notice that I have a keyframe set on scale to the left of the cut and to the right of the cut. And so the zoom is happening right at that cut. And that's why it's extremely important to make sure that those adjustment properties snap to that clip there. So if I play this back again, we can actually see, where that zoom is happening, and then ultimately when we're out of that zoom. So we're going to do in here, we're going to come in here and we're going to go to our scale properties here, and we're going to go all the way to the beginning of our clip. And I like to just, rather than go right on the clip, I just like to go maybe a frame ahead of it to make sure that I can still edit. We're going to go set our parameters here, and we're going to stay at 100 because, again, we're zooming in. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom into 300. And 300 is going to give us the bridge the way it was when we initially shot it. And if we kind of pull this back, you can already see, I think I did something a little wonky, though, with our replicate here. So that's probably what we're seeing. So we can go in and fix that in a minute. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull these parameters down here to ensure that my reflection angle and my parameters are all set to the same. So I might have done a little boo-boo here. So the first reflection angle is 90 degrees. And let's actually do this real quick one more time, because I want to make sure that we get it right in showing you how to do this. All right, so we're going to go to effects, and we're going to go back to that mirror. All right, and sometimes you just have to try these a couple times. And again, this clip is a little difficult because of the darkness in those shadows. So it's hard for me to see, exactly what I was working on here. But I'm just going to go back and just pull these parameters. So I had 90-degree angle on the first one and 913. I'm just going to put these in. Okay. Again, replicate is at 3. And then our second was -90. All righty. And where were we at? 171. So these are good too. Like, I tend to screenshot a lot of these numbers if I'm not saving them as a preset, because then I can just come in here and just manually go in and type the same numbers in each time. And it helps. It really does save me a lot of time. 542 right here. All right, now we're looking pretty good. 90, -90, 180, and then this is going to be 360. Okay, so 360, 1277. 360 and 1277. Cool. Yeah, there we go. Now we're looking pretty good. Okay, so don't worry about all those numbers. Again, this is helpful to create them and then save that as a preset, so you don't have to go in and add these numbers every single time. And that's how we're going to wrap up today. I'm going to show you how to actually save this as the replicate mirror part of that zoom saved as a preset. All right, but now we're in the transform properties. And what I'd like to do, it's looking pretty good. I think like it's achieving what we're going for. But the one thing I'm not really liking is these keyframes just seem really, really stale. There's no, gradual movement to it. There's no Bezier or this nice little ease in, ease out. So like any keyframes in Premiere Pro, in After Effects, we can adjust the velocity and the speed of these keyframes. So that's what I'm going to do right here. If you drop down this little caret here, you can actually adjust these little handles and create some speed coming in and some speed going out. And I think it just looks a little more professional, a little more refined. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click and I'm going to go ease out on the first property, and I'm going to go ease in on the last property. And now you can see that I have this really nice little mound and a nice little curve. And if I come in here and I actually drag these, you'll notice that I'm now creating and I'm changing that velocity per second. Now, the one thing I will say, you got to be really careful about where you're dragging this. You'll notice that if I drag this over, wish there was a way I could zoom in even more, but if I drag this up or down, you're no longer on that plane, and you can already see that it's doing some really wonky stuff when we zoom in, and we don't want that. So you just got to make sure that if you are controlling this manually, that you do watch out for those little situations, and just keep it on, the one line or one plane. Okay, so to me, this is looking pretty good. Maybe I want to drag this in together, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my playhead right between these clips, and what I want to do is I want to create a really nice. I'm going to drag this even more, really nice bend in my curve. So for a really nice aggressive zoom, let's play that back. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then what I'll do is I'll just drag these keyframes over so that they end and start on that first part of the clip. So if we play that back, bam, pretty simple, pretty nice little transition. Again, not something that is new, definitely something that you've all seen before, but I often find myself even looking for these sort of effects and forgetting to save them. So I felt like it would be a really good way to spend this pro tips tutorial and lesson going through some of those things. Now, here's our zoom transition. In the last like 5-ish minutes, I want to just show you how to add a little bit of sound design on top of it, and then the reverse of a zoom out. All right, so back here, I have my folder over here. I have some sound effects. So no zoom would be complete without a nice little sound design to go with it. So I have a couple whooshes in here. So these are just, again, some whooshes that I have saved. That one's nice and clean, nice and bassy. So for the sake of time, let's drag that on. And I just want to make sure Shift plus will expand my timeline. I want to see that I hear that whoosh when the transition hits. So we're a little early. Hold S to just drag this over. Maybe a little late now. And that's pretty good. I mean, with some music on top and the background, you're not even really going to hear too much of that, but it just helps to add a little bit of punch when you have a sound effect on that transition, or else it's sort of placed there without any context too. I think that's important. All right, so let's go to some of our music. And if we go back here, not a huge impactful music track, but still something that I thought was important to highlight because we are editing to that music. So if I play this back, you'll hear that there's a little bit of a bass here. If I solo this, and that zoom and that transition happens right at that bass. And the only thing you have to do here is add a little marker. So if you're scrolling through your music and you find a spot you like, press M on your keyboard. That will mark that place that needs to be where that transition happens. And I had it there originally, but it just seemed a little bit off. So I sort of tweaked it to fit that exact moment. Okay, so music and sound design for those zoom transitions, those specifically are really important. Different whooshes, different sounds. And if we play this back one more time, you'll hear the other whoosh right here. So if we solo this, much different, much longer kind of bass, a little bit reverby. And as you can see, this is actually a zoom out instead of a zoom in. So if we wanted to do a zoom out instead of a zoom in, it's really, really a pretty simple way to switch that. So here's our zoom in. Let's say we wanted to zoom this out instead of zooming in. Basically what we would do is we would take this bottom layer. We can keep all the same parameters, but we would drag this bottom layer over. And we'd go back into our adjustment layers here. And rather than starting at 100, we're going to start at 300 because this is where we want to start. And then we actually want to go back to 100. So we want to zoom out to that 100 mark. Okay, so we're going to go to 100. And now if we play it back, you can see that we're zooming out instead of zooming in. And you're probably getting a little bit of this white like edging right here because of the way that I've set this up. So let's just clear let me just see about making this linear again. So if you ever, want to redo those keyframes, all you'd have to do is go back in here and click linear, and then you can actually adjust those a little bit the second time around. Okay, so we are going to go to ease out again. All right, and then we're going to go to ease in and playing this back. I'm not really too sure why that white is happening here. But in the last 5 minutes, what I want to do is, let's say I didn't want to create that from scratch and I want to come in and actually add a preset to it. What I'm going to do, I've already done this, but let's say we want to take this bottom portion in our effects controls. So we want to take our replicate, our mirror, all of this goodness over here. We want to take that. We want to save it as a preset, save us time, not have to watch James do this on a Friday for 30 minutes, and save yourself some time. So all you're going to do is press Command A. You're going to copy all of this, all of these effects in here, and you're going to go up to video and you're going to right click and go save preset. It is that simple. I've already done this, but let's call it replicate and mirror for Adobe. If you wanted to add, a description to the preset so you know what you're going to be using it for, you can. And we're just going to press OK. All right. And if we go over here again to our effects controls and we go to our presets, here they are right here. So I've already saved these again, mirror, replace mirror. But let's say we wanted to drag this on. I'm going to delete that. Drag that puppy on there. Oops. I believe we do need, let's say I delete all this. Okay. So I delete all this right here. Boom, 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 and boom. Now I drag this on, and just like that, we have all of our parameters that are saved on that adjustment layer. So the important thing is you have to add an adjustment layer to your timeline, and then those effects will be added onto it. And the same is true up here. Let's say I wanted to save this as just the transform because I like that we now have our zoom out transform. Let me pull these over. So this is our zoom out transform. So we're going to go Command A. We're going to go to video. Again, save preset. This is zoom out transform. I'm like typing around my microphone. And we're going to go 300 to 100 rather than 100 to 300, just to keep ourselves clear of what it is that we actually want. Press OK. And you'll see that it saves right here in our presets, and you can slap it on any adjustment layer that you have. So you can use these throughout any timeline that you have. You can, create tons of different tweaks to them, variations. You can do spins. Like there's a lot that you can do with these specific transitions, and they're really easy to make. I think the one thing that I got sort of burnt out on was overuse of these transitions. So it is important to use them when it is necessary. If you're trying to spice up a video, if you're really trying to maybe highlight a lot of the transitions, if you're pushing in on multiple objects, these transitions work really well. Hyperlapses, time lapses, drone shots, you name it, you can use them in any way you want. And this is how you create them. Again, there's lots of resources out there, but this is just my take on how I go about creating those transitions. So that's it for me. I know we breeze through a lot of those details, but again, like I mentioned earlier, we are hopping over to Discord for the next 30 minutes before you get your holiday weekend started. So if you did have questions in Behance today, one, thank you for joining. Thanks for sticking with me for 30 minutes as I went over this tutorial. But yeah, hop over on that Discord. It's linked below. And I hope to see you there. I hope if I don't see you there, that you all have an amazing weekend and put some of these tips and tricks in Premiere to use and go out and shoot and film and just get super creative this weekend. So that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Pro Tips. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care.